guys are doing well. Okay, in this video I'm going to teach how to make a beautiful rose flower organza top. So I'm using these 3 yards of organza, and these are the measurements we need. We need our shoulder, chest line, waistline, hip line. These 4 measurements are our vertical measurements. So our shoulder, we are going to divide it by 2. Chest line, you got your chest line by dividing your bust by 6, then you add 1.5. That is how I get 7.5. Then your waistline, you measure it. Hip line, you also measure it. Then bust circumference, waist circumference, and hip circumference. These are your horizontal measurements. So you are going to divide it by 4. Then at the waist, I'm adding 1 inch is allowance, then plus seam allowance, so that I can be able to wear it, because this is a top that does not have zip. So the hip circumference, you divide it by 4, you add 1. Then also the bust, you divide it by 4, you also add 1. I didn't write it here. Okay, let's get to work. Okay, so the first thing you are going to do is just to mark 1 inch from the edge of your paper. That will serve as our shoulder line. So you mark 1 inch, you connect it to your ruler. So this is our shoulder line. Then on the shoulder line, you measure half of your shoulder. I have 7 inch. Then I'm also using 3 inches width for my neck circumference, and for the depth I'm using 3.5 inch for the depth. So to connect the neck curve, I'm coming out by 0.5 inch from the center front, and I'm going to use my curve ruler to connect it. Then for the back curve, I'm jotting the front and back just here. So for the back curve, I'm coming down by 1 inch for the neck depth of the back. So I'm using 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect it. Then to also connect the neck curve, I'm going to come out by 0.75 inch, and I'm going to connect it. So this will serve as my back neckline. So you can see the depth of the front and back is not the same. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is from this shoulder point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. So from this point, I'm going to come down by 7.5 inch. So that is my chest line, as I explained. After that, you are going to connect it into an horizontal line. So this will serve as my chest line. So from the shoulder line, you are going to measure your waist line. So I have 15.5 as my waist line. And I'm going to also roll it into an horizontal line. So from the shoulder line also, I'm going to measure my hip line. So I have 24 inches as my hip line. I have 24 inches as my hip line. So we are also going to connect it. Alright, so the next thing you are going to do is to input your horizontal measurement. So we can see we are done with our vertical measurement. So my horizontal measurement, my bust circumference is 35, then 35 divided by 4, I have 8.75. So I'm going to input 8.75 here, and I'm also going to add 1.5 seam allowance, or let me make it 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, so at my waistline, this is my chest line, waistline and hip line. At my waistline, I'm going to input my waist circumference divided by 4. I have 6.75. So I'm going to input 6.75. I'm adding 1 inch ease allowance because this top is not going to have a zipper. So I'm going to add 1 inch at the waist only to be able to wear it. So after that, I'm going to add my 1 inch seam allowance. So the next thing is to input my hip circumference divided by 4. I have 9.5. Then plus 1 inch seam allowance. So after that, I'm going to connect that. So you notice I only added ease allowance at the waistline. So after that, we are going to get our armhole. Because this top is a sleeveless top, I'm going to come in 2 inches from the shoulder point because I really want it sleeveless, like very smart. So I came in 2 inches from the shoulder point, then I'm connecting it like this. Okay, so we are almost done, guys. Then at the hip line, just come up by 2 inches, just to get that beauty at the hem of your top. Then you're just going to connect it like this. Okay, we are almost done, guys. The next thing you're going to do is to add your 0.5 inch seam allowance. Then here we've already added our seam allowance. If you can see, we've added our seam allowance already at the side seam. So the next thing you're going to do is to add 0.5 inch seam allowance all round the neckline, and we are going to use this to cut out our material. Guys, you can see I've added the 1/2 inch seam allowance at the neckline, armhole, and also 1 inch seam allowance at the hemline. So what we are going to do now is to cut it out. So you can see this is a dartless top. It's a free top, so we don't need that. So that's why you didn't see that line. So first of all, we are going to cut the back neckline. So after using it to cut out our material, we are going to trim it off for the front neckline. Okay, this is how it is. So we are going to use this to cut out your back. So you can see this doesn't have a zip allowance, so we are cutting it on fold. So place a fabric on fold and cut the back so it does not have zip. So I'm going to use my pin to secure it so that I can cut it out. So you're going to cut out your center back. So we are cutting out our center back first. So we've cut out our center back. We are also going to cut out a facing for this center back, and this facing is just going to be 2 inches from our side seam. So this is how I'm going to cut out my facing, 2 inches from my side seam. That is what I'm going to do now. Then after that, we are going to use this pattern to cut out our front. So we are going to cut out our facing like I told you, 2 inches down from your seam line. That will be our facing. So this is our facing. So this is our back bodice, and this is our facing for the back bodice. So the next thing we are going to do is to make a slit at the center back. Since it's not going to have a zipper, we are going to make a slit at the center back so that we can be able to wear it. Yeah. So we are going to mark 6 inches downward from the center back, and we're going to cut it open. So I'm simply going to fold it and make the slit. So I'm going to mark 6 inches from the back neckline downward. So that will be for the slit. So like I told you, this slit is for us to be able to put in our head, since it's not going to have zipper. So I'm going to make that slit on my main bodice and also on my facing. So 6 inches downward is okay. Then I'm also going to do the same thing to the facing. Okay. The next thing you are going to do is to trim out this for our front neckline. Since we've used this to cut our back pattern, we are going to trim out this so we can use it to cut our front pattern. So we are trimming out basically the back neckline. So you can see I've used my pattern that I trimmed off. I've placed it on my folded fabric. So I'm going to cut out this for our center front. So I'm basically cutting out our center front, and the fabric is on fold. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out a facing for this, just like we did for the back. So I've placed my pattern so I can use it to cut facing. So just like I cut the facing for the back, I'm also cutting the facing for the front. So here is the facing for my front. So you can see I've cut out the front pattern, and this is the facing for the front pattern, and I've also cut out the back pattern. We've slit it, and this is also the facing for the back pattern. So the next thing we are going to do now is to cut out the ruffles. So we are going to work on our rose flower, and for us to get this rose flower, we need a base where we are going to pleat this rose flower. And what we are going to use to get this base is our bust span divided by 2. So in my own case, mine is 7 inches divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm going to use 3.5 as my radius. So I'm folding my fabric once, and I'm going to fold it again. So you cut out your radius 3.5, and you are adding 0.5 inches seam allowance so that you can turn it out. You can use it to turn it out. So basically I'm marking out 4 inches. So I'm using this pin to secure this fabric so it can stay one place. So I'm basically marking 4 inches round. So you cut it out. So I've cut it out. I'm going to use this to cut out another circle. So I'm going to use I've cut these 2 pieces of circle. I'm going to use one to turn it out. So this will serve as my base of my rose flower. What we are going to do is to cut out our strip that we are going to pleat for this rose flower. So I'm going to fold my fabric, so you can see how I'm folding it. So I'm going to cut out this part so that my strap will be straight as possible. Okay, so from this point I'm going to measure 7 inches. I'm going to measure 7 inches. So you can see I've measured 7 inches from this point to this point. So I'm going to cut it out. So you can see this is a long stripe. So this is from here to here is 7 inches. So that when I fold it, it will be 3.5. So I'm going to cut the rest. So I've cut out my strips. So what I'm going to do now is to go to my sewing machine and join it into a long strip. So after that, I'm going to fold it like this and top stitch on it before pleating it. Finish joining this stripe. So what I'm going to do next is to fold it. You can see how I'm folding it. Fold it. Then I'm going to run a stitch to hold it. circle, I've pinned it round. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew it round, so that after we are going to open it at the center and turn it out from there. Circle round, and also this is my stripe. You can see how long it is. So what I'm going to do now is to turn out the circle. I'm going to open it up like this, and from this center I'm going to cut it open so that I can turn it out from there. So I've turned it out. What I'm going to do now is to go and give it a good press. You see, this is my base, then this is the stripe. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to pleat this. So I'm going to pleat it. I don't want to pleat it directly because it's more stressful that way. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to pleat it before coming to join it around this base. So you can see I'm pleating it very close to each other. So we have finished pleating it, and this is how it is. Okay, I finished pleating my ruffles and this is how beautiful it looks. So what next I'm going to do now is to mark 1/2 inch round this circle. So that is where I'm going to pleat. Okay, it's not pleating because I've already pleated it. So this is where I'm going to sew it. So I'm going to sew this ruffle round this base. So I'm actually marking 1/2 inches apart. So you can see that I've marked the 1/2 inch round this circle. So this is actually where I'm going to sew this ruffle. So let me show you quickly. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to use pin to secure it. So before I'm going to sew it, you can see how I'm placing it. So I place it like this on the first 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to secure it with a pin. Go. So you can see that I've pinned the first round. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine to sew it, and I'm going to proceed while sewing the rest. Okay. So this is how you are going to sew it till we get to the last line. Okay, I'm done. Alright guys, you can see that I've done our rose flower and it's really beautiful. Okay, the next thing we are going to do right now is to use this back facing. You can see I've already done this loop. I use a bias strip to do this loop. So from the neckline of the back, I'm going to come down 1/2 inch and place it right here. After that, what next I'm going to do is to use this facing to cover it up like this. So I'm going to surround the neckline through to this place here and here. After that, I'm also going to sew the armhole, then turn it out. So I'm going to do the same thing for the front too. I'm going to use the facing to turn the neckline, turn the armhole, then I'll also turn this place. I'm also going to turn this place. I'm going to do the same thing for the back. Okay, so you can see guys, I've sewn the facing. I've used the facing to turn it. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to trim off these seam allowances, notch these places. notch these places, then I'm going to turn it out and give it a good press. Guys, I've gone to give it a good press, and you can see how beautiful it's looking already. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate where my bust points fall on this dress. So from this point, my bust point is 10.5. I'm going to measure 10.5 from this point. So I'm going to mark 10.5. Okay, plus the seam allowance because we've not taken the seam allowance, so it's going to be 11 inches. So this is where I'm going to place my flower. So on this point, I'm going to place my flower. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew it round. You know, this ½ inch that we left here. So I'm going to use it to sew it all round like so. So I decided to show you guys how I'm joining it so that you won't be left in the dark. Alright guys, I've gone to join my flower and this is really looking very beautiful, guys. And see, we are almost done. I'm very much excited about this, guys. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, the last but not the least, we are going to go to a sewing machine and join it at the shoulder, join it at the side seam, and we are done. So guys, you can see I'm done joining the shoulder, the side seam, and everything is looking so pink. Like, guys, I'm very happy it came out very beautiful. So the next thing I'm going to do is to put the button, weave it down, and we are all set, guys. How do you see it? Let me know in the comment section how this tutorial was helpful to you. Please do well to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.